Island vibes, it's a brand new day. Ooh, yeah. From Africa to the Caribbean, the news unfold. Stories of freedom, stories untold.
Hello, welcome to Kush News, the newscast of the African diaspora. I'm your anchor, Ochanda, daily bringing you the top stories from Africa and the Caribbean. Let's take a look at today's news on Monday, April 15th, 2024. Let's start in Africa, where African nations are calling for restraint on retaliations. Several African countries have called on Israel to restrain from retaliation as its war cabinet meets to decide whether to militarily respond from the Iranian aerial attacks this past weekend. Iran said it carried out the assault in response to an Israeli airstrike on its consulate in Syria back on April 1st. Saturday's assault on Israel involved more than 300 drones and missiles. Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, and Somalia have called for restraint to avoid further escalations. South Africa's Department of Internal Relations and Cooperation said on social media that all parties must exercise the utmost restraint and avoid any act that would escalate tensions.
I think it was a signal. And what we hope for is de-escalation. We wouldn't like to see escalation. We believe that, in fact, there is an intention to get Iran to react more harshly, because the real war that is being called for is a war against the Islamic Republic of Iran. And so we understand why they have exercised the level of restraint that they have done.
Pando cautioned against dissenting opinion over the UN's handling of the situation.
We can never agree that one country becomes the director of all our international affairs. We prefer to be in a body where all of us have a voice. And this is why the United Nations. And if you feel sometimes that you cannot support the UN, be wary that what you will be supporting will be unilateralism. You'll be supporting a hegemonic control of our ideas, our beliefs, our perspectives, and you'll be destroying a body that allows all of us to have a voice.
Pando says all eyes will be on a meeting of the United Nations Security Council on Monday to see what can be done to enforce a recent resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. Vusi Kumalo, SABC News, Durban.
Many other countries, we are very keen that there shouldn't be an escalation of the conflict in the Middle East. And so we would urge restraint on all parties and ensure that the key focus is the Palestinian people and their struggle for freedom and justice. So what we should all be paying attention to is an end to the onslaught against the people of Palestine and the achievement of a permanent ceasefire and the return of hostages to their homes in Israel.
Warn at a very early stage that unless the challenges and the war between Israel and Palestine in Gaza is handled with care and with great wisdom to ensure that there is a ceasefire and humanitarian assistance, the war would soon escalate beyond the borders of Israel, and it would engulf countries in the Middle East. So this is totally unhelpful, and it is something that should not be happening. We should not be having a regional conflict when we know what the origins of this conflict are. And we therefore call upon all parties to desist from escalating this conflict, because it is a very dangerous conflict that could soon escalate way beyond even the borders of the Middle East.
Kenyan President William Ruto urged Israel to quote-unquote show utmost restraint, taking into account the urgent need for all parties to walk away. He also added that the Iranian attack represents a real and present threat to the international peace and security. Somalia called on the international community to take swift and decisive action to de-escalate the situation and reduce the risk for a further conflict. The Nigerian Foreign Ministry urged Israel and Iran to reflect on the universal commitment to peaceful resolution of conflicts. Those in Africa, let us know your thoughts on African nations making their voices very apparent on not wanting to have escalations in the Mideast go any further. Let's go to the Caribbean and end it there. We go to Grenada, where the Prime Minister speaks in support of Cuba. On Sunday, Prime Minister of Grenada, Dickon Mitchell, called on the United States to remove Cuba from the list of countries labeled as sponsoring terrorism, and also to end the economic blockade on the Spanish-speaking island. An economic blockade stops all the imports and exports of a certain country. This is also known as an embargo. The Prime Minister spoke during a news conference at the Maurice Bishop International Airport to update citizens about his official 3-day visit to Cuba.
That the people of Cuba have been under an unjust economic blockade for the last 6 decades.
The Prime Minister explained how, despite the hardship of being embargoed, Cuba remained resilient in its engagements with countries like Grenada, extending assistance beyond its borders.
And despite that, they have not closed themselves off from the world. They have not only looked internally, but they continue to share, they continue to help. We experienced this during COVID-19. There are significant Cuban collaborators in Grenada still working and supporting the people of Grenada. And so we owe it to the Cuban people to stand in solidarity with them and to continue to call for the removal of the economic blockade against the people of Cuba and the removal of Cuba from list of countries that sponsor terrorism.
He emphasized the detrimental impact of the blockade, preventing millions from experiencing Cuba's cultural richness and learning from its valuable insights.
By continuing to do so, the United States is preventing millions of ordinary men and women from around the world in visiting and experiencing the wonder that is Cuba. Because Cuba certainly has a lot to teach the world, a lot to share with the world. And the continued blockade, the continued wrongful listing of Cuba as a state that sponsors terrorism is actually preventing Cuba from giving more of itself to the world.
Prime Minister.
His return to Grenada coincided with the 45th anniversary of Cuba and Grenada establishing diplomatic ties. He said, quote unquote, "We owe it to the Cuban people to stand in solidarity with them and to continue to call for removal of the economic blockade against the people of Cuba." The United Nations General Assembly back in November of 2023 voted by a large margin against the U.S. economic and trade embargo against Cuba. A total of 187 member states voted for the removal of the embargo, with only the U.S. and Israel voting against it. Those in Grenada. Let us know your thoughts on your guys' government making a strong stance to show solidarity with Cuba. Let us know also if you feel that this year will be a year that the embargo will be removed from the island. Let's go to Haiti, where the UN is looking forward to a transitional government. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has welcomed the establishment of a transitional council in Haiti. The Transitional Council is tasked with choosing new political leadership and setting up elections in the island nation. In a statement issued on Saturday, the UN chief welcomed the publication of a document formally establishing the Transitional Presidential Council, which is tasked with choosing Haiti's next prime minister and cabinet. Last Friday, the Transitional Presidential Council in Haiti said the political agreement had been finalized between different political, economic, and civil society groups. Amid a political vacuum, Haiti's anti-government rebels have launched coordinated attacks on various targets since February, including police stations, prisons, airports, seaports. This has resulted in the resignation of Prime Minister Ariel Henry back in March. The rebels have stated that they are fighting since they haven't had presidential elections in over 9 years, and they are protesting against Kenyan deployment of police officers. Even as the capital, Port-au-Prince, and the much surrounding areas remain in the grip of the anti-rebel gangs fighting police, UN humanitarians are continuing to offer emergency aid to those impacted. Those in Haiti. Let us know on where you guys stand on everything. Let us know, do you feel that a transitional government can help mediate, can make things a lot better? Also, let us know on if you feel that a prime minister is to come here in the next few months. When we come back, we'll have today's African proverb of the day. Don't go anywhere.
Right. Especially, and I'm going to use, since we both have podcasts, right?
Yeah.
Stuff on YouTube. When they see us, like with Ochanda in this nice shirt on today. Right?
Both of you.
Yeah, and
he's got a peanut butter leather jacket. Come on, guys.
I love it.
shout out to all my Equatorian peanut butter eaters.
I love it. Represent.
Shout out to all South Sudanese. But yeah, like when you have...
When they would put on Congolese music videos in the 90s, nobody's
till
starving
today.
in these music videos. In fact, people are rolling in the best Lexus, best Range Rover.
Mercedes.
Kofi is like dipped and draped, right?
Fashions from Paris.
But I'm saying Africa because there's African dancers. So I'm thinking this is...
Black tax.
All
we
right.
know you're not sending money back home. But
No,
still.
not at all. And my message for the African diaspora, don't send money back home. So there's a few things why. Number one, get the voices out of your head. Usually when you're sending money back home, it's because your mom's voice, your dad's voice, your uncle with the wooden leg, your aunt with the glass eye, your cousin with the arm growing out of their forehead. They're telling you to send money back home because somebody got sick or somebody was in an accident. Why were they riding a motorcycle without a helmet? Like that,
First of all, that's not a regulation.
Yeah, but now they're hurt, and now you that are working at Kinko's part time is responsible for that medical bill.
Kinko's is not even in business anymore.
Well, wherever.
So you're not working.
Wherever. So you're not. So you're getting an unemployment check, and you're having to send that Western Union and Sendwave.
Welcome back. Let's take a look at today's African proverb of the day, and it comes to us from the Maasai once again. What's going on, you guys? Jumping high. And it reads, you cannot force water up a hill. Once again, you cannot force water up a hill. Maasai proverb. You know, to relate this, you can't force relationships. You can't force people to get along with you, to like you. And to a certain degree, you really can't force people to respect you. What do I mean by that? A lot of us men, let me talk to the men. Let me talk to my gentlemen. What's going on, fellas? A lot of us are in relationships, whether it's social relationships or, romantic relationships. And we're around people that don't want the best things for us. But sometimes we feel that we need other people. I need my friends. I need my boys. I need my girlfriend. I need my wife. And they're treating you terribly. Wake up, Bomera. Get rid of them. Seriously, walk away. In fact, not only will it not kill you, it'll actually make you a lot better, and you'll thank yourself. Let me know your interpretation of today's African proverb of the day, as well as your thoughts, views, questions, comments, and concerns on the top stories. Don't forget to hit that like button. Make it your best friend. For Kush News on Kush Convos TV, I'm Ochanda. We'll see you soon.